Since Alistair and I first started the sportspiel podcast in April 2017, we have made it our mission to try and achieve two objectives: promoting women's sport and the incredible athletes it has, as well as highlighting and educating people around the issues of mental health. And this episode sees us once again combine these two in perfect style as we talk to Reading Women's FC footballer Remi Allen. Since becoming one of the game's first full-time professionals in 2011, the midfielder has so far carved out an impressive career in the WSL with Notts County, Birmingham and now Reading. Indeed, her game has gone from strength to strength over the years, as proven last season as she played a pivotal role in her side's run to fourth in the WSL, scoring a stunning bicycle kick in a victory over Manchester City on the way. Such was the level of her performance that season, she was named the Player of the Year, Players Player of the Year and Fans Player of the Year at the end of season awards, while Allen also inspired her team to a dramatic victory over Manchester United early this month to send Reading through to this year's FA Cup semi-finals. Furthermore, Allen is one of those athletes who is just as impressive off the pitch as she is on it. Thoughtful, engaging and very well articulated, it really was a pleasure to get the chance to sit down and speak to her. Amongst the many topics we discuss includes how she and her teammates had to deal with idiotic men who still felt the need to talk down to women's footballers recently, and how she thinks we can encourage more women to become football coaches. We also talk in depth about her struggles with mental health and how that actually for many, including herself and myself, it's not simply a case of curing the problem, but actually just managing it so that it doesn't affect your day-to-day life. We know we say it all the time, but this really is an interview you don't want to miss. So hello listeners and welcome back to another episode of Sportspiel. I've said previously that the calibre of guests forever improves on this podcast, and today is no exception to that as we welcome on Reading women's footballer Remi Allen to the show. So first of all, thank you for coming on, Remi.
No problem.
I guess we'll talk your team's form at the moment. So we're speaking just a couple of days after a very dramatic 2-1 win over Birmingham in the FA Cup.
Yeah.
I guess talk us through that game.
I mean, it was a bit of a roller coaster in the end, but I actually thought that's the best we performed against Birmingham in a long time. I thought we dictated play for a majority of the game. I thought they had a couple of chances. They had one clear chance in the first half, but other than that, I think we limited them on their chances and stuff. And I think we were really patient on the ball and built our way into the game. And I thought we deserved the first goal. And then obviously they score, and you're a little bit like, the amount of times we've played Blues and that's happened and they've gone on to win the game. But it just felt like we had a different feeling, there was a different vibe among the group, and we were really, really determined. And obviously it was really lovely to go and get the winner at the end and go through to the next round. So everyone was buzzing. It's been a long time coming.
I saw the reaction on social media from not just from the club's account but from your own accounts as well. That win really meant something, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. I think it's we're under no illusion that this season hasn't been a little bit difficult for us. And you know what? We've never beat Birmingham, and we're always so competitive with them, and we're always classed as sort of a similar sort of side to Blues in terms of where we finish in the league and whatnot. And you get to a point where you want to beat them, and they keep doing it to you and keep doing it to you. You just get more and more riled up, and you want it to happen. So I think it was a lot of relief, and I think we were just so happy with our performance as well, and we believe that it can be a stepping stone for the rest of the season.
And Raquel Honudottir got on the score sheet.
Pronounced that well.
Yes. New signings to the club must be the perfect way to make her mark.
Yeah, she's been amazing since she's come in. I mean, she's bagged a couple of goals in the FA Cup, and she had a good chance against Arsenal when she came on for her actual debut as well. So it's been really, really good to have a different option. She's very powerful, explosive, wants to score goals. So it's been really nice, and I think, like you said, it couldn't have been more perfect or fitting for her to come on and score.
Manchester United in the next round. Obviously WSL 2 side, but we're doing well in there. What were your reactions when their name came out of the hat?
I was happy. I actually think United are a very, very good side, and I think they belong in our league. I do genuinely believe that. But you want to obviously try and avoid the top two, or top three as such, and you do that. I think United come close to anyone after that anyway, but it's one of them competitive games where they're going to want to play, we're going to want to play. We had a decent game against them last time, so I was really excited because this year's the FA Cup is a big thing for us.
Speaking of Manchester United, obviously it was well publicised that they came back this year with the restructuring of the WSL. How important was it from a football-wide perspective that such a big name brought back a women's team after such a long time of not having one?
I think it was huge. I think it's a massive deal, and there's been comments that I've seen that are quite negative towards it, and me as a footballer, I'm like, it's absolutely brilliant. You've got another team who wants to be professional, full-time, do things the right way. It brings more females, gives them more opportunities to play, to learn, and to have it under such a big banner as Manchester United, for the women's game, it can only publicise things more. So for me, I don't see any form of negative from it. I think it's brilliant. And
have you noticed any particular differences in the women's game since that restructuring at the start of the season, or is it for you guys still quite a similar process as to what it was before?
I think in terms of the league, it's probably slightly more competitive than it's ever been. But I mean, it's still difficult because I still feel like you can section the league off into three. You've got your top three, you've got your middle group fighting it out, and then you've got your relegation. And it is difficult to compete with the top three. I mean, I hate bringing money into it and stuff at times, but that obviously is a huge thing, the players that they can attract and stuff. But in terms of overall, I think having like a United who potentially are going to come up, it's going to strengthen the league and make it even more competitive. So it's probably improved things, definitely, yeah. And I think moving forward, it's exciting to know that as a player, I guess one thing that you struggle with the way the league is you don't play many games because there's not that many teams in it. So to have more teams building and getting better and better who can come into our league, it's only going to expand. And as a player, you don't want to be training all the time, you want to be playing. So it's nice to know that can happen.
One thing I've noticed is that the fixture seems to be much more, not regular, but when they're going to be. So I remember trying to follow WSL a few seasons back, and the fixtures were sort of here, there and everywhere. It seems it's much more regular this time round. Is that something that you as players quite enjoy as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's hard when, you can sometimes go, you've got 3 games in a week, and then you might not play for 4 weeks, and you just it makes no sense, or you don't know exactly when something's been scheduled in for. And I think, if you... And I hate to compare to men's football, but as often as it is, everyone knows when the games are. Fans know, players know, staff know. So it should be no different in the women's game. And I think that's been a lot better this season. I still think there's huge gaps at times, but as a player, like I said, you just want to play games. So to know you've got them scheduled in and fixtured in, and you can plan for it, is a lot better.
And how have you noticed the coverage of the women's game this season? I know, for example, the Telegraph have now appointed Katie Wyatt, a dedicated women's football reporter, and it just seems that there are a lot more people talking about it. We're hearing a lot more about it. Is that something you as players are noticing as well?
Yeah, definitely. You can see it's getting bigger, and you can see the improvements with that, and I think it gives us more exposure, which is brilliant. It also comes on the flip side. With more exposure, you're up there to get criticised, or you still get your keyboard warriors on certain things anyway. But even just on your performance and stuff, people can now have an opinion, which is new probably to us, because it's only always been the 20 odd people watching the game that can go, she didn't play very well. But now it's it's publicised, it's in papers, it's on the telly. You're up for scrutiny a little bit, but I think actually it probably drives a lot of players on, and we want more of that. So it's definitely a huge improvement, and I think just by doing that, the amount of youngsters or parents you can educate about the women's game, you're going to get more girls wanting to play football. So that's definitely been a positive.
You mentioned their keyboard warriors.
Yep.
Is that something that is increasing in the women's game? Are we seeing more and more people trolling you, or is it actually starting to sort of be countered by more and more people actually supporting you guys?
I think it's catch-22. I think there's a lot of education now, so a lot of people are respecting and understanding women's football and women's sport as a whole. But then, like I said, because there's more exposure, you still, a company can put a story out about, I don't know, a woman footballer's mistraining or whatever the story is, and if you actually click on the quotes underneath, you will always get your standard, well, she shouldn't even be playing, she should be in the kitchen, blah blah, all the standard things. And I think what I think we try to remember, that is a minority of the public who are very narrow-minded, and if you let that affect you, then they've won. Ultimately, the best thing that we can do. I mean, I've had it recently, and I've wanted to reply so badly, but I'm like, just don't even give them the time of day. At the end of the day, I get to play football for a living, and I get to do a dream job. There's nothing in the world I'd want to do more than this. So actually, who's winning? That'd be me. So I think when you can keep that open mindset with it, you're all good. Obviously, it affects you a little bit, but I think, on the whole, we take it quite well.
I have seen a few comments recently on one club in particular's feed whose women are doing a lot better than their men whenever their men are losing or the women are winning, saying, men are coming around saying, can we actually just swap the players around so the women are playing? So there's sort of some things like that where people are improving, but I guess the reason we got in contact wasn't a keyboard warrior, but it was an incident you had in a bar after a game, or in a pub. Sorry. I guess if you could talk us through that and what happened.
Yeah. Basically, we just played in the FA Cup. We'd won. There was a male game on. It was a big game, and we were like, should we go nip to the pub to watch the second half? So we was all like, yeah, it's probably about 6 of us. Getting there, obviously, still got our red and stuff on. A couple of blokes in there chatting to us, very respectful, asking about the game, blah blah. And then one guy walks in who's a friend of them all, and basically just rips into women's football and just is like, you should never be playing football. It's a man's game. All of you combined couldn't beat me. I'm better than all of you. More and more disrespectful comments. And to be fair, it was actually quite tough to handle in person, because part of you just wants to be like, all right mate, you crack on if that's what you think, but then another part of you wants to go in almost and go back at him. And we were respectful. We left it as it was. And it was actually on the drive home. I was coming back to my house, and the more I was driving, the angrier I was getting, and I was just like, it's not acceptable. And that's actually when I tweeted about it. But yeah, you're always going to get them people, and there is a certain way to handle it. But I was just a little bit like, it's very insulting, because I do this for a living and I get the joy and the pleasure of doing that, but I also work really, really hard to get here, and I have to work really, really hard every day, no less than any man who plays football, and they don't get grilled for it. So it's still very unacceptable, and it's something that we have to deal with. But there is progress, but you still get the odd person who's like that. And
I guess a lot of their ignorance and their basically stupidness is fueled by the media. What do you think that we could be doing differently to try and educate these men, because it is men effectively, to actually show them that how hard you guys do work? Because I see on a day-to-day basis you guys in the gym, you guys training. I know how hard you work and how skillful you are. How can we get that across to as many people as we can?
I think sometimes, even when people try and be positive and compare it to the men's game, I think that sometimes doesn't help. And like you said before, when if a certain women's team's doing well, and they go, actually they might as well play for the men's team or whatever, that's then actually disrespecting the men's sport as well. So I think keeping them separate is quite key, and respecting that, trying to look at it and go, whatever a man does on a day-to-day basis at a football club, at Reading Men, whatever one guy does there in comparison to what I do at my women's football club is exactly the same. There is no difference, so there should be no comparison, or there should be no, they're better than you. Yes, men are fitter, faster, stronger. Genetically they are. We can't ever change that, and we never portray that we are. You never see a woman footballer go, well actually I'm much stronger than him. We are good at what we're good at. Some of us are physically strong in the women's game. Some of us are technically good. Some of us are skillful. Some of us are really good at decision making. But it's for our own sport, not for men's. So I think the comparison causes a lot of problems. And I think maybe for media, just trying to, even if there was something where, and we are starting to do it, like a day in the life of so and so or whatnot. But actually, I think if people understood how hard we worked, there's probably a lot less negativity towards it, because we do work really, really hard. So I think that may be a way to go, but definitely the comparison thing, I think, is something that should be stopped straight away.
That has been talked about a lot in the media recently in terms of punditry, in terms of should women be commenting on on the men's game, and I wrote a piece for Sportspiel actually where I just basically outlined that I think men are hypocrites because they're quite happy to listen to pundits like Jake Humphrey, and they're quite happy to listen to journalists like Adrian Durham, who have been in and around the men's game for ages, know how it works, but they've never played, yet they're going to complain when Rachel Brown finished at Alex Scott. I guess, what have you made of that whole argument?
It infuriates me. Like, I can't believe that me and you can sit at a table and discuss football, and someone can sit there and go, "Oh, you know more because you're a man." But what in God's right gives you like anything to say that you know more? Like, I think I agree there should be a certain level to anyone who does any form of media, and I think within women who are doing it, we're very new to it. We haven't had the exposure that Jake Humphrey's had, or Gary Lineker's been doing it for years or whatever, and I think there's times when certain males look more comfortable. I do agree with that, and I think you go back to when they first started, they probably didn't look the most comfortable, and do you know what I mean, how they come across, but the knowledge, like Alex Scott for example, her knowledge is spot on. You can't ever say that she's saying anything any different to what a Graham Souness is saying, or whoever it is in there, but because it comes from her mouth it isn't accepted. And I just think it's pure ignorance and narrow-minded people, and I almost like I don't even want to give them the time to educate them, because I feel like it's a waste of my energy. Like genuinely good people who have an open mind and who believe, you know, women have a right, they understand and they know. And do you know what, if you don't, the simple thing is turn it off. If you're that bothered, just turn it off. But yeah, it does infuriate me, and I can't understand how people can even say it. And basically a lot of the time it's before a woman's even opened the mouth, so they've judged them before they've even said anything, whereas they don't with men. And you know, as women we have to sit there and listen to men. We don't turn around and go, well actually he hasn't got a clue because he's never played football in his life. If he talks sense, he talks sense. So it is frustrating.
How good is it though to have people with power and influence like Jake Humphrey on your side championing female footballers? He
was actually unbelievable. Like, him coming out and doing all of that and saying all of that, I think is another level, and it's something I think again that can really, really help women in football, in sport, or whatever it is, because sometimes, as frustrating as it is, you need a big male presenter or celebrity or whoever it is to actually step forward and say something for it to register with these people. So huge respect for him for doing it, and I think it's so good and so helpful for us. I mean, it's frustrating that we need that to happen, but yeah, like massive for us, really.
Unfortunately, that needs to happen, not because of the male spectators we're talking about, but also some ex-male footballers as well. I know Jason Cundy a few months ago said something, I can't remember what it was, but it basically wasn't great. And then a quote that was doing the rounds this morning on Twitter from Fulvio Colavati, who said, when I hear a woman talking about tactics, it turns my stomach. A woman can't understand tactics like a man. So that's coming from a male footballer. Obviously, I imagine a lot of the modern day players are who spend a lot more time with the women are a lot less different. But what frustrates me is that these guys are getting airtime as well when they've got views like that. Yeah,
it's just disgusting. And actually, do you know what? Must be one of the most uneducated men going then, because how you can even allow that to come out of your mouth is beyond me, because who are you actually even talking about? Because I guarantee you don't know any single name of any woman pundit or footballer or anything, because you've not actually been educated enough to go and learn about it. So it's just a pig-headed sort of statement from a man who's got no respect for women. And again, it's one of them where I'm like, I don't even want to prove him wrong. I don't even want to give him the time of the day. And I actually think sometimes exposing them actually gives them what they want, almost. And I'm not saying he might be different, but you know, it's beyond ridiculous and pretty disgusting that we still have to put up with that in this modern era that we're in. I guess all we can keep doing is, you know, performing, playing, being in the media, doing our job, doing our roles, and ultimately, like I said before, like, get to do it for a living, and all these female pundits get to then do that for a living as well. So we're the ones actually winning because we enjoy what we do and we love what we do, and actually we're really open-minded people who don't judge women and we don't judge men, so we're actually better for it, we're the better people.
Talk about playing. When you're playing games yourself and you're playing in front of a crowd, I don't like going to men's football because the amount of abuse and stuff referees take. And I've been to a few women's games when I was working up with up in the north east. I went to a few Sunderland games, and the atmosphere was brilliant because a lot of kids there, a lot of chanting, a lot of support, but no negativity. Is that something that's still the case, or do you sometimes get a bit of abuse, unfair abuse from the sidelines?
It's funny you should say that, actually, because I received a little bit at the weekend with Blues being my former club. I actually had a chant going about me being a Birmingham reject, which was interesting.
I saw a comment on Twitter about that,
which kind of erupted on social media a little bit as well afterwards, which was new, which was interesting. And I mean, listen, football's football, and everyone's going to have opinions, and you can't ever deny someone their opinion. Yeah, is it nice to hear? Probably not. However, actually in the game, they needed to shut up because it actually makes me more determined. Funnily enough, like it doesn't deter me in any way. I actually just want to be better, and I want to score a goal, set up a goal, or win the game or whatever. And as luck happened, that actually happened on Sunday, so it was really good for me. The social media stuff is a little bit more difficult, I think, especially, I've had family members now step in and comment because they're insulting her daughter or my sister or whoever it is, and so I've had to speak to them because it's something new that they've never experienced. And I got to the point where I was like, shall I actually say something, because you're upsetting my family now a little bit. But anyway, I just blocked the person because I just thought I don't need it. But in terms of actually in the game, you don't get it often. You don't. I don't mind it. Like, I actually don't mind it. I think you're always going to get a little bit of it. It's football, whether it's men or women's. But majority of the time, there is a lot more sort of a friendly atmosphere going on, a family atmosphere, which, is kind of the route I think women's football's gone, to try and attract people to come. It's very, very much a family-orientated sport. So if that attracts fans, brilliant. There's going to be a little bit of banter, a little bit of hostility. You just kind of have to get on with it.
And you're playing at a time now, playing in front of bigger crowds than you ever have before. You've been a professional for a number of years. I guess when you were growing up as a young little footballer, did you ever imagine you'd be in the position you're in now? Never,
ever. I mean, even when I was young, and I loved football, I played it constantly, I was in the lads team, it never even crossed my mind that it would ever be a professional thing. It never even crossed my mind. I didn't even know when I was younger that you could play for England, for example. So when that opportunity arose, I was just like, wow, as if this is even real. But yeah, I thought it'd just be something that I played on a Sunday with my mates, or five-a-side or whatever. I never really thought too far into it. But when I actually reflect, I'm like, oh my god, it's actually amazing. The route that it's gone. My only regret is that I'm not younger, because I feel like the way the sport's going, it can be such a career that you can have for 10, 15 years and earn money and do live your dream. Whereas I've still done it, but it's been probably a lot harder process because we've had to overcome so much to be professionals. But yeah, it's an unbelievable role, unbelievable experience that sometimes you have to remind yourself how lucky you are with it.
And I think it's fair to say you're playing some of the best football of your career as well. You bagged 3 awards at Reading end of seasons last year. I guess, have you ever enjoyed playing football more than at the moment?
Do you know what? It's funny you should say that, because football's so up and down. And last year, this year, because we're in it 24/7, because it's so intense, especially here at Reading, when you are working really, really hard. Some sessions I come away and I'm so angry, or I'm so infuriated, or I'm so drained, even from match days sometimes. But when I look at the overall picture, I love it so much, and I do enjoy it so much. I'm so lucky. I think you have to sort of take how intense it is sometimes, and it may feel like you almost don't enjoy it, but on the bigger scale, when you look back at it and you're like, well, that was a really hard week, but I got so much out of it, and on Sunday I get to go do something I love, which you wake up with butterflies in your stomach on a Sunday. It is the best feeling. And yeah, definitely, I think overall, when I look at it, I couldn't be in a better place with my football and how I perceive it and how I enjoy it, and even how I'm playing, I guess. So yeah.
And it must. I know you've written about this for She Kicks magazine, and you've spoken about this. It must then make the difficulties you've had to overcome even more worth it, that you've actually managed to get through that and you still managed to get to the top.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I've spoke about sort of mental health and whatnot with She Kicks and other various sources, and I think that's something that, as I've learned as I've got older, it doesn't go away. So just because I have a great football career doesn't mean that I don't have mental health problems, or I don't struggle, or I don't suffer. But I think football's been my biggest constant in my life, and I think it's something that's helped me through so many bad times. And even when football's really hard, sometimes that can be another reason that I struggle or whatnot. But overall, football's been one of the things that probably has saved me a little bit, and it's sometimes with mental health problems and whatnot, one of the best things to do is being able to exercise. And some days I'm struggling and I've got to come in and I'm training and I don't really fancy it, like I don't feel great, but I get out on there, and then when I come off I feel so much better. It's just a release. It's something that helps physically, mentally, so yeah, it's football's helped so much with all of that stuff and is a huge part of my life, and like I said, mental health is something that I'm always going to struggle with. I know that it's a lifelong thing. It's not just something you snap out of, but it's great to have an outlet, a release, and you know what, my closest friends are now my family, and that's what I've got through football. So in so many levels, football's helped me so much.
And I don't know, you might not have heard, but we did a series of mental health specials back in Mental Health Awareness Week in May, and one episode was just Alistair and I chatting to each other over the phone. It wasn't really a podcast, it was more two mates having a chat, and that was the first time we'd both publicly spoken about our own struggles with mental health, and it was quite liberating in some ways. I guess, did you have a similar feeling when you spoke about it the first time?
Do you know what, I mean, the project that I sort of did with She Kicks actually came from myself, the idea, and I've been thinking about this idea for ages, going into different clubs and speaking to different players and everyone sharing their stories to try and help, and I just daren't say it. I just daren't ask anyone or speak to She Kicks or anything, and then I did it, and the feeling I got was just unbelievable, because even for me, I was creating that, but I was thinking, will anyone be struggling, or will they tell the truth? And there's a lot of people I know, and I know quite well, and they were a couple of people that I went to, and I actually went to them to pass it on to the rest of the girls at the club, and they were like, no, I want to do a story, I've been struggling. I'm like, wow, I never would have known that. So it was a really liberating feeling. And then by the time it got to coming to putting the stories out, and my one was the first one, then I had I felt sick, my nerves, and when Jen was like, oh, I'll be out in the morning, I was like, what have I done? No, I don't want to do this. And then the feedback I got from it, and people just saying you've inspired me, and you've helped me so much, and it was just unbelievable. And I'm so glad that I spoke out, and not even to a huge extent, I just spoke out a little bit, and I'm so glad I did it.
And I guess what was the reaction from your teammates? Did they know that you were suffering with mental health issues, or was it something that was a bit new to them as well, and how did they react to it?
A couple of them knew, the people I'm a little bit closer to had an idea to some extent. The other girls I don't think had a clue really, and it's funny because I still think it's a massive taboo subject, and I still think some of the girls even here probably didn't know how to approach me to say, oh, I've seen what you've wrote or whatever. And I had a lot of people just liking or saying thanks for sharing your story or whatnot, but I still think it's hard, because I think a lot don't want to be too nosy. They don't want to say, oh, I read this, can't believe you struggle with this or whatnot. So I still think it's really difficult for those that are not that close to you to sort of know how to react. The only thing that I think maybe that I hoped with my teammates and stuff is sometimes the way I may be, I might overreact in training, or I might be a little bit quiet, or whatever feeling that I'm going through, is that they maybe have a bit more knowledge now to go, right, I understand that she's probably struggling a little bit, I respect that, and for whatever reason they might not go, oh, you're not doing this or whatever. They just might be a little bit more aware of my feelings a little bit. And I think even if there's no word spoken sometimes between you about the subject, if they have a little bit more understanding of she might be struggling a little bit, they may react a little bit different with you in situations that then ultimately helps you. So I guess in that sense it probably helps a lot. But you know, those teammates that are close to me have been really supportive, and it just helps to talk. Like, it really does. And still to this day it scares me to talk, and to some people I won't, or to some people I only open up a little bit, but it's definitely something that's like so handy to do, and so a good coping mechanism basically. Yeah.
And I think the talking thing there is something that's crucial, because I know that with certain people, i.e. my parents, I don't talk enough about it.
Yeah.
So they still don't understand when I don't want to do stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not because I don't want to do it, it's because I'm basically too scared to do it, or worried about what the repercussions will be. So that's such a crucial thing to share, and talking about it was sort of the way I sort of found out effectively what was wrong with me, for want of a much better phrase. I didn't realise myself that I had issues until someone pointed it out to me. Was that a similar thing to you, or was it just a moment where you realised actually what I'm feeling is not normal?
Do you know what? I feel like as I grew up, I had a lot of negative feelings. I had a lot of negative feelings about myself, about life, about situations in my life, and I could sort of feel it spiral, and I could sort of feel like I was struggling, but I never could put a name to it. I never understood what it was, and it wasn't till actually my best friend said to me, like, at the time, I think you should go and speak to someone. And I was just like, no, that's not for me. Like, I don't do that. Like, I always felt like I had to have overly severe problems to have to go to someone, to speak to someone. I never felt like what I was feeling or what I was going through was justified to go and speak to a therapist, for example. And then when I actually did, and we were able to put a name to it and stuff, like, I think it just changed. My mentality changed towards it, and you know what, I had a period of seeing someone, and then I didn't for years, and I probably went 500 steps backwards in that period. But then I come round to the idea again, and now I'm in a place where if I don't acknowledge, if I'm not aware of what's going on and how I'm feeling, I'm never going to be able to get out of that negative mindset or that feeling of being low or whatever it is. So me now, I definitely try and talk more, even though it's something I really still struggle with a lot. And I still see a therapist now, and we'll talk about the fact that I don't open up. I say certain things to certain people, but am I ever genuinely honest? If I feel like turning around and going, do you know what, I feel like breaking down, I feel like crying, it pains me to even think to say that to someone. Like, I wouldn't, even if that's what I'm feeling inside. So it's something that I'm working on, but I think a big key has been learning to be aware that it's not me, it's not just me, this isn't just how I'm supposed to feel. There's reasons to why I feel the way I do, there's a name for what I feel, and sometimes breaking that down and working on that doesn't make it so scary and make it so almost like you can't beat it. Whereas so my mindset now has completely changed, and don't get me wrong, it's a work in progress, and I still have moments where I feel like I've hit rock bottom again, and I think I'm going to get out of this, and I've got no one, and blah blah blah. But now I've got sort of coping strategies, and sort of just me being aware of, do you know what, I'm feeling like this, why am I actually feeling like this, and breaking it down a little bit has helped so much. But yeah, I wouldn't have done any of that if I didn't actually speak to someone and open up. So it was definitely key.
I think what you're saying there is something that actually is a message that needs to be spread more, and that a lot of the stories you hear about people who've overcome mental health issues, and I know for me it's a constant process. It's actually not about overcoming my conditions, it's about managing them. And I think that's something you're talking about that we need to talk about a lot more, don't we?
Yeah, like, it's okay to have bad days. It's okay to feel like you don't want to get out of bed, or you don't feel good about yourself, or you feel like other people are judging you constantly and you're paranoid, and you know what, they're probably not, but in your head that's how you feel. And I think there's times even when I lose track of that, and then I beat myself up because I'm like, oh, it's me, why am I feeling like this? Like, it's always me, like, no one else has these problems, and you end up being a victim and feeling so sorry for yourself. Whereas I feel like when you accept that, you know what, there is just going to be days when that happens, and if you can acknowledge that and do whatever your strategies are to cope with that, even if it doesn't make you feel perfect, it just helps you not dip to a too low a state. That's okay, and next day you wake up might be completely different. And I had it recently where I had a period I felt horrendous for a good week, and then one day I woke up and it was like a light bulb had gone off, and I was like, oh no, I feel really good today, I feel really positive. And I feel like you have to accept that will happen, and like you said, you have to manage what you feel in every day of your life now moving forward, and just not sort of beating yourself up about not feeling great or whatnot, because it doesn't help. So yeah, I think that's really important.
And as a professional footballer, do you get quite a lot of support from not just from Reading and the coaching staff, but also from the likes of the PFA as well?
The PFA have been brilliant. I've been seeing someone through the PFA for quite a while now, and I can't speak highly enough of that. The club have been supportive. The club have offered me, to see someone at the club or whatnot, but I've formed a really good relationship with the council I see, so I wanted to stay with them. But I do definitely feel, it was actually a conversation I was having with a girl from another team last night. We want to actually look into doing more to help, because I think unfortunately it's still classed as a sign of weakness, in my opinion. I think, and I totally get, I heard someone say, I can't come in and say to my manager, I think it was a male footballer, David Cottrell I think said this, he felt like when he was struggling he couldn't walk in and say to his manager, like, mentally I'm just really not feeling good, because he wanted to play at the weekend. And if you say that to your manager, they're probably going to go, okay, well we can't play him because we can't, or her, we can't trust them or whatever. So I think it's something within the club, because you're with your club 24/7, that needs to improve. There needs to be, people in place for that, probably on a more day-to-day basis. And I'm not saying every day, because the funds are probably not there, but having someone there to support and guide you, and even staff members having more of a understanding and knowledge. And to be fair, Reading are pretty good at it, but I imagine they could still be better, and I can imagine a lot of clubs still need to be better, and just even maybe being a little bit more compassionate sometimes, because how you feel. When you feel low, you feel really low, and when you walk into a football club and the pressure is instantly on because it's intense and you've got to work, and everyone's focused purely on results based and what we need to do to beat this team. Some days you don't want to be there, or you think, I don't even know how I can cope with this, and it can be really isolating. So I think I don't know how we do it, but it's something that I would really like to look into, because I feel like clubs should be able to help probably a little bit more than they probably feel like they are at the minute. And I think that's purely down to not being educated enough with it. Yeah.
You speak about there saying Reading are quite good with that sort of things. What is playing for Reading like as a whole, in terms of as a professional outfit as well?
It's so different to any other club I've been at. I mean, I've never been at a club where like the training is so intense and so hard. Like when you get your rest days in the week, and people go, oh, you only trained how many times this week and you got a day off or whatever. Like, you need the day off. Like, my body come that day off is craving rest, and it's really, really intense and really, really, really hard. Hence why I'm probably physically fitter than I've ever been, because I have to push my body a lot harder. The attention to detail in terms of training, like the specifics that we work on, especially on more of like the going forward stuff, I've never had that in my career before. So that's improved me no end in terms of technically as well. And we had a lot of success last season. It was kind of a bit of a whirlwind where we didn't lose many games, and it was great. This year's been a little bit different, so we've probably had to look at ourselves a little bit more, and the staff have had to look at themselves. So it's been an interesting process this year, because it hasn't been all smooth. But I think even when I look at Sunday and I go, we can probably sense how far we've come as a team from how together we actually felt, and how we felt afterwards, and how happy everyone was and how close everyone was. I think sometimes, like, doing well, it's easy, isn't it? Like, everything's great and you don't mind rocking into training. When you're struggling and you're going through a bad patch, which we've had at times this year, it can be a lot harder to motivate yourself and the team. But I think actually that's probably brought us together, and we're in a lot stronger position as a club and as players and as a team than we've probably ever been. So it's definitely challenging, and I think any footballer who tells you it's a bed of roses whatever club they're at is lying, because you're always going to face problems and things you need to solve as players or staff and individuals or whatever, but overall there's nowhere else I'd rather be, that's for sure.
You spoke right at the beginning of the interview about you said you could still break the top tier down in sort of 3 sections, but last season you were right up there, right up chasing the top 3. This season Birmingham are almost on the same points as I think Chelsea in 3rd place, and you're not far behind. Is that a case of you guys punching above your weight, or actually you don't just need money, you need quality in your team, and you and Birmingham and the likes have that quality?
Yeah, I think I can use Blues as a very good example, that I think they don't possess the best players in the world. They don't, nor do we. But what they do have, and what I think we've started to build and in the process of building, is they're so structured, and they know how to win games, and that's an art, and that you don't have to be the best footballer in the world to know how to win a game. They play things right. They, when they're winning, they know how to manage a game. They've got that art of being able to not concede many. They're very sort of a couple of chances, score a goal. In the bigger games as such, in the lesser games, I'm sure they dominate. But I think they've got a very good way of being as a club and as a team, and anyone who goes to play Birmingham, and I think we've got this reputation now, any team that comes to probably us and Blues go, whoa, we know this is not going to be an easy game today. And I think it takes a lot of time to build that and build that strength for character and whatnot, and I think Blues have it in abundance. I know they're under a bit of transition at the minute, but with a new manager, and I think it's something that we've definitely started to build, and probably the mentality's changed a little bit, where maybe the top 3 come to us and aren't 100% sure that it's 3 points, which is huge. And I think so the gap is slowly closing, but then a new season will come, and then we fight as probably Blues do, we fight the issue of, well, who are they going to sign, because they just keep bringing in world-class players. Like, you look at Arsenal in the minute and you can't touch some of their players, and you're like, we're trying, we probably can't compete to that level, so we're always playing catch-up, but I definitely think the gap is probably getting smaller.
And what's it like playing under Kelly Chambers? What's she like as a coach?
Yeah, she's lovely. She makes me laugh. She's good. Like, she's very chilled, to be fair. I mean, we have our assistant who takes a lot of the sessions and whatnot. She oversees things, but she's a good bubbly person, and she can sort of help sort of manage training and manage games pretty well, to be fair to her, and I think the blend of staff that we've got work really well together. So yeah, she's good to have around, and she does make me laugh a lot of the time, which you sometimes need, but obviously when she needs to be serious, she needs to be serious, and so when she sort of goes off on one, you're in trouble. Like, it's very rare that she does, so you're like, oh god, we've definitely messed up. But yeah, no, she's a good person, she's a good character, good manager.
Do you think she's slightly sort of underrated by the media, especially as a female coach? She's been at Reading for a few years now, and really consistent with your side, and at a time where people are talking about we need more female coaches in the game. Do you think there's a focus on the likes of Emma Hayes and the likes of Hope Powell, but do you think actually people should be recognising the achievements of Kelly a little bit more?
Yeah, definitely. I was just going to say, before you said, obviously there's always been a lot of publicity around Emma Hayes, rightly so. I think she's unbelievable at what she's done.
She also provides a good quote as well.
Yeah, she's very good with her words. You watch an interview with her and you're like, oh, she's done that well, and there's an art to that as well. So she's done amazing, and I think, why shouldn't Kelly get recognition? Like, from where Reading were to where we are now is huge. I think this season is quite difficult because we had such a high of last season, and finishing 4th, it's kind of hard because you have to match that now, and that can also be a struggle, because many people might go, oh, you overachieved last year. Whether we did or not is soon to be told, but we this season then have to push on and try and finish 4th or above, or go and win a cup, which is difficult. But she's done unbelievable. You think about the players she's brought in and the group that she's now got, and we've got some unbelievable players, like internationals, she's done an amazing job, and finishing 4th last year was brilliant. Like, no one had put money on us finishing at 4th. we're going to try and win a cup this year, and we're trying to compete in the league as best we can. So I definitely think she goes under the radar, and I don't necessarily believe that she should, because we want to celebrate women coaches. We do, and we want more of them, like you said. So the ones that we've got who are doing well, why shouldn't they get recognition?
Is coaching post-career something you've thought much about before?
Yeah, definitely. I've just recently completed my UEFA B, actually, so that's one thing ticked off, and it's definitely 100% a route that I'd like to go down after football. Definitely coaching, hopefully managing. I've learned a lot, put it that way, through my career on how to be, how to coach, how to manage, and also how not to as well. So I think that can only put me in good stead for what I want to do in the future. So it's definitely something I think about, and I'm getting a bit older now, so I start to think about it a little bit more.
You're in the middle of your career, you're fine.
Depends on my body, you see, but no, it's definitely 100% something that I want to go down, yeah.
And we saw Emma Hayes saying that she'd like to manage in the men's game one day. Would that be you, or...?
Too early to say for me. I mean, I want to manage at a top level in women's football, definitely. I would never rule. So I guess when you ask me that scares the life out of me. Putting me in an environment full of men who are probably going to judge me before I've even started. I mean, I'm a 5'1" woman for starters. They'd probably be like, oh, like, who's she or whatever. But sometimes you have to do things out of your comfort zone. So who knows, one day if that situation come about, I'd probably not turn it down. But who knows.
And I guess sticking with the season, to finish off the interview, what are you and the rest of the Reading team hoping for before the culmination of the season in sort of April, May time?
We'd love to be in a cup final. Obviously we've got the FA Cup to play for, which is something that I've been dying to win my whole career, so that's huge and something that we'll be aiming towards. And we're playing catch up to try and get towards Blues on that 4th spot. It's something we won't give up on. I mean, we've made it really hard for ourselves, but I think we're in a good bit of form at the minute, and momentum's high. So hopefully we can go and win tomorrow night to keep that momentum up. So yeah, in the long run, a cup final and to try and push for that 4th spot is probably the best we can go for.
We certainly wish you all the best. We hope to see you in that cup final, and thank you so much for being a brilliant guest. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
A tremendous thanks to Remi for coming on the show and being such a fantastic guest. I know I really, really enjoyed our chat, and we hope you, the listeners, did as well. That won't be the last you hear of Remi, as we have plans to bring her back on the podcast later in the year, although we don't want to give away too much just yet. In the meantime, Alistair and I hope to be back with our first regular episode in a little while on April the 14th, so make sure you keep your airwaves free that weekend.